好，那么观众朋友好 I'm sorry, I'm speaking Chinese. I don't know what's going on here because I got two shows. I have to switch back and forth. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our show. This is Wayne and Kathy show, and today is a special edition. We're broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., exactly in the west front of the capital of the Washington, D.C., a special event that, we bring this to you. As a matter of fact, Kathy flew over to Washington, D.C. yesterday morning, and that's how she can, catch this event. So what is the event? Actually, put a little background here. Let me tell you the event first, okay? The subject is about the conservatives, Hispanics, and House representatives holding a press conference and a rally for a free Cuba, okay? And this event is hosted by the American Conservative Union, ACU, and then Bienvenidos US. That's a Spanish name. I'm sorry, I may not say it correctly. Okay. Anyway, it's just it's a Cuban American related organization. Then the Republican National Hispanic Assembly, and then the Tea Party Patriots, along with the House Cuban working group, is holding this event at this very hour. And there are, I'm looking at this list of guests. All right, so at least 3 senators, U.S. senators. We got two U.S. senators from Florida, and also Ted Cruz from Texas, and also Kevin McCarthy, House Republican leader. His name is also on the speaking list, and a few other House representatives. So we do got a pretty strong lineup and speaking out, and the purpose is to demanding the action by the Biden administration against the oppressive communist dictatorship of Cuba and the support of Cubans in their fight for freedom. All right. Okay. As we all know that the protest in Cuba started in July 11th, all right, which is about 16 days ago. And then since then, in the very initial few days, we see a lot of protest and all over the country, all right? And the theme actually was focused on freedom and calling for the ending of the regime of the communist, this is another CCP, Cuba Communist Party. And then you see that American flag was, flying there, just like how we saw that in Hong Kong last year. However, after only a few days, the internet was shut down, all right? No matter what happened over there, people have the cell phone, they are not able to transmit a picture out of Cuba. So what is happening in Cuba become a myth now. And for us, we've been covering this. We covered the Hong Kong back then. This channel was not there, but in the Chinese channel. So we know that that's the classic formula of the communist government. All right, okay. So now, with no further ado, I don't want to really delay it. So Kathy's over there, and Kathy has the Kevin McCarthy, the House Republican leader, with us. Kathy, it's yours. All right. Oh, okay.
It's Mr. Matt Schlapp, the chairman of the American Conservative Union. So it's you are the organizer of today's event, right?
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
So why?
At the Capitol since what happened on 1/6. So we've had all these months where the Democrats have not allowed anyone to peaceably assemble. So we thought it was very important and a good cause, the cause of freedom, the cause of democracy, to come together and exercise our First Amendment rights in support of the Cuban people.
So why do you think, what's going on in Cuba is important for Americans to support and speak up?
Well, it's pretty clear that America is fighting socialism. It's pretty clear that the Democratic Party has embraced socialism. And socialism isn't just bad economics. Socialism is quite cruel to people and to their rights. And we think if we stand up for freedom-loving people everywhere, whether it's in Hong Kong or whether it's in Cuba, if it's in Asia, if it's in Africa, no matter where it is, we'll actually make America stronger. And I think the rest of the world expects American leadership on these questions of human rights.
So now, it seems interesting that the Cubans Cuban people are fighting against the communism dictatorship.
Right.
But some, as you said, some of the young people and some of the liberal Democrats, they actually embrace socialism, even communism. So what do you think is the reason?
I actually think what we see with our CPAC events is 50% of it will be young people, and I think more young Americans understand that socialism isn't the answer that gets covered in news media. So I think the world needs to understand that we haven't lost the young people in America. Now, some of them sometimes get confused as to what socialism is all about. They think it's helping people a little bit more and a little more government. And then when they realize that their schools get shut down and you can't go to school, and their businesses get shut down, and they get told they have to take a vaccine, and they get told they must wear a mask, and they get told they can't leave their house, and they start to realize that this idea of the government controlling every aspect of your life becomes quite problematic.
So what do you think would be the best thing for Americans, including our administration, the American people, to do to support the Cubans?
Well, first of all, we should take certain steps as a government. We got to make sure that we keep this embargo and break the economic back of the regime in Cuba. We got to understand that the people don't benefit from increased trade, that it's just the government that benefits from it. And if they can get American currency, the dollar, into the government, they will last longer, and they will be able to repress their people for even longer periods of time. We should also be able to get the internet back up. We learned this in Hong Kong, how democracy protesters communicate on these various apps. But if you don't have the internet, you don't have the ability to do that. It'd be fairly cost efficient for the American government to take steps to do that. We've done that with radio and television broadcasts in the past. So these are the kinds of steps we need to take, and we need to see leadership from the White House on that.
Right, yeah. Okay, so just a final question. Briefly tell us who's going to come to speak today.
Like all these senators and all these congressmen and all these great democracy activists, and we'll hear from some dissidents from Cuba, people who have fled the repression, and we're going to send a message to the world that America stands with freedom fighters. Okay? Thanks for being here. How are you?
Okay.
All right, so that's Matt Schlapp, the chairman of the American Conservative Union, one of the main hosts for today's press conference and rally. So actually, we will, have more guests to interview, to have, talk about why they are here today. So stay tuned.
Okay.
Back to you, Wei.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, Kathy is now in the western front of the Capitol. This is Washington, D.C., and she's there live, and she flew there yesterday, and now she's covering this important event. As a matter of fact, I just put a little backdrop here. So American Conservative Union, this is an American organization, right? Conservative. However, when the protest in Hong Kong happened, ACU is the first U.S. organization that went over to Hong Kong and went to the street and stand with the Hong Kong protester there, and they were very well received. Okay, according to my information, and so basically, what happened in Hong Kong is nothing short of just asking for freedom. So are the Cubans who are taking the street, taking to the street and running, facing all the risk of a communist regime, which I just cannot be more familiar with, living in China for 22 years before coming to this country. So so although we do not have live footage for you, inside Cuba, we know what's going on there. We know, including the government, actions, how they, shut off the internet so that they can do whatever they want and then get away from it. So the key thing to deal with communism is expose the truth. Sometimes it's not even a weapon. It's not a war. Okay, it's basically the truth. The truth is the most powerful weapon. If we are able to, America is able to, bring forth the truth. Of what happened in Cuba to American people, to the world, then that will be very, very powerful thing that we can do. So now I think we got another great guest. I think our audience will love to see. And Kathy is with Gordon Chang. Kathy, you have the mic. Yeah, you have the mic now.
Yes. Okay. All right. So back to Capitol Hill. I'm here at the west of the Capitol Hill, and next to me is the famous author Gordon Chang. So Gordon, welcome to our show.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Yes. So why are you here today?
Because we see China supporting totalitarianism and authoritarianism in our own hemisphere, Venezuela, Cuba, elsewhere. And we need to get China out. We need to make sure that democracy is on the march rather than hardline governance.
So how specifically do you think the Chinese Communist government is behind Cuba?
China has been supplying the Cuban regime with money, with technology, and with propaganda. So, for instance, when the Cuban regime cut off the internet to the protesters in the beginning, that was Chinese technology that did it. Huawei Technologies, ZTE, and other companies are in Cuba's telecom backbone.
Right. See, we know like the Americans send troops to fight the communism in Vietnam, in Korea, but now it's almost like it's here almost. As we see, some of the people, they actually support socialism or communism. So how do you see this phenomenon, and how does that relate to what's happening in Cuba?
Well, the important thing is that people can see that socialism doesn't work. The people of Cuba are telling the people of America that it just does not work. And that's an important message, because some people in the United States don't seem to have learned anything over the last 50, 60 years.
So what do you think is the reason?
Every generation sort of learns for itself, and all the lessons of the past seem to melt away. And that's why the world doesn't progress. It goes in cycles. And that's the reason why, people don't understand it. Ronald Reagan said that we don't pass freedom down in the bloodstream, that freedom can last only for a generation. And unless you knew it, we will lose it.
So what do you suggest we should do then as Americans?
There's an issue of education, but also we've got to show the world and the American people that socialism doesn't work, that liberty is the foundation of all progress.
Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
All right. So I think the press conference starting now. So we'll go right straight to the press conference.
Okay, sounds good. So as you can see, Kathy's over there. The press conference is supposed to start at 9 o'clock. Now it's a few minutes after that, so it's starting. So we're going to focus our camera on the speakers. They do have a very good lineup of the speakers, and I can read to you a few of them. And so who is speaking is Matt Schlapp.
That today marks the very first rally.
Right, so he's the American Conservative Union chairman, which is he hosted the CPAC, which is the largest conservative annual event. Now it's become twice annual event.
Let's show everybody watching.
Let's see whether we have the footage from the live scene. So along with that, there's other speakers like Mercedes Scallop, who's the wife of Mr. Matt Scallop. And Mercedes, she was the former White House Director of Strategic Communications. Then we are expecting Kevin McCarthy, the House Republican leader, and also we're expecting Maria Diaz-Balart, who is the Florida House Representative. And also we got two senators from the Florida. One is Mark Rubio. And the other is Rick Scott, also the former governor of Florida. We also have the Senator Ted Cruz, as I just read to you, U.S. Senator. And we have Gordon Chang, as you can see. And we also have another House representatives, another couple of House representatives. And we got an FCC commissioner, Brendan Carr, who's the FCC commissioner. And also we have the Tea Party Patriot co-founder, Jenny Beth Martin. And I bet you if you search around and find how many media is covering this, normally this is a pretty heavyweight rally, with so many senators and House minority leader. This you should expect 20 to 30 media is covering this event. I will ask Kathy a bit later how many media cover that. And I bet it's single digit, if not 2 or 3. I hope it's not just one, just we are covering that, then nothing else, nobody else. Anyway, so the big situation is as I said, the protests started in Cuba in July 11th. So for people like us, I'm a journalist, and I was a student in China. Okay, during the June 4th Tiananmen crackdown, I was in my junior year in college, and a situation like that. Okay, there's always it always could be a tipping point of major change in the communist regime, because communist regime they are never stable. That's why they are so paranoid. That's why they exert so much control, because any moment can become the tipping point of the major collapse of the regime. That's also why the Cuban government, as Gordon Chen just said, which I completely agree, is basically borrowing all the technology from the CCP, another CCP, Chinese Communist Party, the Cuba Communist Party. This small CCP is borrowing idea, resource, and technology from the bigger CCP, try to maintain control. That's why you only see this rally in the Capitol Hill. You don't see enough photos, enough videos from within Cuba, and then that's the most crucial thing. Okay, they want to cap it. They don't want anybody to see it, want anybody to hear it. That way they can sort of they can, in Chinese we call 摆平, they can suppress the situation, so that nobody know. Okay, but things are happening, and well, as the job of as a journalist, our job is to bring you the truth and to bring you what happened, so that you are well informed and the truth is powerful. Anyway, so again, we're reporting to you from this San Francisco studio, along with Kathy, who's in the west front of the U.S. Capitol in Washington D.C. And this is a live event, and. Okay, I think Kathy is ready. We need to pass the mic to Kathy. All right.
We pray for all those in Cuba who are struggling with hunger, despair, and poverty. We remember those who are being imprisoned, beaten, and persecuted by their own government as they are simply crying out for freedom, justice, and human rights. Dear God, protect and give them strength. And we especially pray for the children of Cuba. As we pray for Cuba, we are reminded the values of self-determination, equality, religious freedom, and human rights are not exclusively American. They are universal rights given to us by God. Our rights and freedoms come from God, not man, not a monarch, not government. Dear Lord, we pray the free nations of the world would stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Cuba in this heroic struggle for freedom. We pray for President Biden and Congress, and that America would use our great resources to support the Cuban people during these challenging times. And Father, we are so thankful for all the members who are here today. Bless them and guide them. And as we close, we look forward in faith to the day when the communist regime of Cuba ends up on the scrap heap of history like other oppressive governments around the world. Psalm 9, 7, and 10 says, "But the Lord reigns forever, executing judgment from his throne. He will judge the world with justice and rule the nations with fairness. The Lord is a shelter for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble." Father, we ask all of these things in the name of our precious Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Blessing. And Cuba Libre!
If there was any other time when we need prayer, I can't think of it. The only good thing about socialism in America is it's done wonders for my prayer life.
So the speaker is the chairman of the ACU,
and I think that we are honored
Union
today to have so many great elected officials with us, and someone who helped us get this very permit, which wasn't the easiest thing, so that we can start to exercise our rights and stand for freedom, was our great Republican leader in the House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy, would you come up and address us?
So we have the House Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy, who is coming to the podium and speak to us. That's.
Can you hear me now? Thank you for being here. As I said, this is the first time since we lifted the gates we're holding a rally here. Why are we here? We're here for freedom. For those in Cuba who crave it, we hear you, we support you, we are with you. There's no doubt, no question in this House, when you hear from these members, that we are a beacon of freedom and we will stand with anyone who craves freedom. But we need our voice to be louder and stronger because we need to hear it from Pennsylvania Avenue. Time is of the presence. We have to stand now. We need the internet up so people understand. We need the world to understand what's going on. They need to stop the repression of bringing people into jail, bringing the kids in as well. I don't understand what it takes to make Biden move. The problems that happen in Cuba are not from America, it's from communism. America is more than countries, America is an idea. We see it in Cuba where people hold the American flag. They crave the freedom. But I will tell you, we will not wait, we will not sleep, and we will not stop until we change the regime. Until the people in Cuba have the freedom. And every freedom-loving person in the world should join with us. If you're here today, thank you. But bring more. Let's make the pressure mount. And you're going to hear from people who personally know what this regime has done, not just to their family, but to others. But I will tell you, we're stronger, and we shall win, because freedom always will. Thank you, and God bless.
Let's hear it for the next Speaker of the House. All right, now I am really honored to bring on the stage a wonderful senator, someone who's been a fighter for the Cuban people, for the Floridians. Let's welcome to the stage Senator Rick Scott.
First off, so here's what we want. What do we want? Freedom, libertad, right? And when do we want it? We want it right now. Thank God the people of Cuba have stood up. They're saying enough is enough, right? So we've got to stand with them. If we don't stand with them, who will? We are the beacon of light. So when they thank Matt and Mercedes for putting this together, I want to thank Kevin for being here and all the effort he's put in to make sure we get freedom in Cuba. Now, what do we have to do? Our job is to let everybody know what's going on there. We know that dissidents are being arrested. We know that they're being tortured. We know that peaceful protesters are being beaten up. We know children are being taken and put in the military. We've got to get that story out. Every video, every picture we see, we've got to make sure everybody sees it. Then we have to expect the Biden administration to show up. Don't just talk Joe, right? Where is the guy? I mean, he needs to get out there and talk about what's going on.
Okay.
He should be the
so
one
now,
that's
guys,
doing
we
these
have
press conferences saying,
Kevin McCarthy
"We
with
are the
us,
beacon of
the
freedom."
House Republican leader. Let Kathy have the mic. Kathy, it's yours.
The oppression of what is happening. The problem isn't because the main problem is communism. That's why there's not vaccines. That's why there's not freedom. There's not freedom of speech. We not only should say we support it, we should take actions to create it. We should make the internet back.
There's some problem with the sound quality.
So then they understand that we stand
And we're working on it.
and everybody around the world.
Thank you.
Let's do it.
Okay, so that's Kevin McCarthy. And I'm sorry that the sound is a little broken. Hopefully we can fix that and re-air this to you later. So that's Rick Scott, U.S. Senator of Florida.
You heard from Florida. Now we got to hear from Texas. A great Senator, Ted Cruz.
God bless the United States of America. And God bless the people of Cuba. Right now, we are seeing incredible heroism. We're seeing courage displayed in the streets of Havana. We're seeing Cubans who are standing up and demanding to be free, and they are risking their lives. They are risking communist thugs coming with billy clubs and beating them, imprisoning them, torturing them. But let me speak right now to the people of Cuba. We hear you. The American people hear you. and the world hears you. Your courage is inspiring. Your courage is powerful, and your voice, liberty, will prevail. Over 50 years ago, my father came from Cuba. My aunt, my tia Sonia, came from Cuba.
So now we have Senator Rick Scott with us, and let's give the mic to Kathy.
Socialism has never worked. It's never worked anywhere. It always ends up in shortages. It always ends up with a government that's a dictatorial government that beats up peaceful protesters and has to put dissidents in prison.
Yeah, and the Americans used to send troops to North Korea, to Vietnam to fight communism, but now it's almost like our doorstep. So what do you think?
We have to keep all of our options on the table. But the first thing that the Biden administration needs to do is start talking about this so the world knows about it. I always think about that. Remember that little child, the 2-year-old? There was the Syrian boy that died on the Turkish beach. Everybody saw that picture. We got to show the pictures of what's happening in Cuba right now. It's despicable what the Castro regime is doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
One question may I ask: what type of message do you think this sends?
Cuba.
Okay, now back to Ted Cruz,
is evil,
U.S. Senator
it is
of Texas.
Oppressive, it is illegitimate, and it must fall. The people of Cuba deserve what they're demanding in the streets. They deserve libertad. They deserve liberty. They deserve freedom. And we will see a Cuba Libre. Together, America stands with the people of Cuba.
Okay, it's Ted Cruz.
Okay, there's somebody in the House of Representatives who's led on this issue since the time I think he was born. And he's the voice we need to hear now. He was out in the streets with you yesterday, and he's really shaking things down today in the House. Mario Diaz-Balart, would you please
Okay, now we have Ted Cruz. Let's see.
People there are exercising incredible courage, and there are moments in time when there's an opportunity for change. We saw it in China in Tiananmen Square. Sometimes that heroism is crushed by brutality. But other times it inspires change. And it inspires change when Natan Sharansky was in the Soviet gulags. He described how the words of people standing up and speaking for the Russian people oppressed by the Soviet communist dictatorship, how they pierced even the darkest prison cell, how in the gulag they would pass notes from cell to cell. Did you hear what the American president said? Evil empire, that Marxism-Leninism will end up on the ash heap of history. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Likewise, the courage of the Cuban people is inspiring. It's inspiring to the people all across the nation of Cuba, but it's inspiring to people in America and across the world. And I believe evil regimes, tyrannies, will fall. They are illegitimate, they are corrupt, and highlighting liberty is powerful in its transformative power. All right, thank you.
Okay, that's Ted Cruz. Now let's come back to the live.
It's not the sanctions that's murdering Cubans on the street.
So this is a
It's not the sanctions that's bludgeoning them in their homes.
congressman.
It's not the sanctions, and it's not the United States of America that has deprived them of their freedom for 62 years. It is an illegitimate, murderous, terrorist regime. And the message to all of those apologists of the regime that think that that communist socialist country is the panacea. Listen to the Cuban people. They're not carrying British
Speaker is,
flags.
his name
in their
is
demonstrations.
Maria
They're not
Diaz-Balart,
carrying Swedish
House
flags,
Representative
flags
of
in their
Florida.
demonstrations. They're carrying the American flag along with the Cuban flag, because America is and will always stand for freedom. And let's make no mistake about it, they call themselves a socialist panacea. The regime in Cuba. Call it socialism, call it communism. It will fall because of the heroism of the Cuban people. It will fall because the American people understand freedom. It will fall despite a president who is totally asleep and clueless. And so, to see back to all of you, mantengan la presión. El cubano lo está sacrificando todo y tiene que saber que no están solos, que el pueblo de los Estados Unidos está con ellos. Y a pesar de los que quieren ayudar al régimen, el mundo pronto va a ver la realidad que existe en esa isla. El socialismo y el comunismo va a ser derrotado de una vez y por todas. Y cuando Cuba sea libre, que lo va a hacer, lo va a seguir Venezuela.
Into Spanish. I hope you understand.
Gracias. Mantenemos la presión.
Is the 25th Congressional District of Florida.
By thanking the most noble people in the history of humanity, the great freedom-loving people in the United States. Us, for one, are not apologetic about the greatness of the United States. We will never apologize for the greatness of the United States.
Okay, now Kathy has the FCC Commissioner, Brendan Carr.
God bless you.
A moment in history that we simply cannot let pass. The people of Cuba have taken to the streets to pursue their God-given right for liberty. There's a role we can play in America. We invented the internet. We are still the greatest beacon of freedom that the world has ever known. And one of the things that the regime is doing right now is shutting down the internet so that the world cannot see the brutality and the steps they're taking to shut down these protests. We have the technological capacity here in the U.S. to beam internet connectivity into Cuba to support this movement. All we need is a decision from the Biden administration to give this effort a green light, and the American private sector enterprises can get this done.
Yeah, so it's being reported that actually the Chinese Communist government is behind the shutdown of the internet in Cuba, for example, Huawei technology. So how do you think, the role the Chinese Communist government is playing in Cuba, what does that mean?
When you look at the digital fingerprints of the entities that are involved in blocking internet access in Cuba, you're exactly right. This shows the exact same fingerprints of steps we've seen from the communist regime. And so I think that's further to the point of why we need to step in and support this movement for freedom, because it's not just Cuba that's blocking internet access. They're doing it with the backing of communist China technology. So I think it's time for us to stand up, not just for Cuba, but against the efforts by the communist China regime to shut down internet connectivity and therefore freedom, just 90 miles from our own shores.
So Sound of Hope, actually, we broadcast via shortwave into China. And this time, some Cuban Americans come to us to see if we can help them. So in that regard, when internet is shut down, actually shortwave is probably the only way for people inside those dictatorships regime can get information. So what do you think of this front?
Look, I think we need to pursue every opportunity to get news, information, and connectivity into Cuba, whether it's through shortwave radio technology, which we do in the U.S. through an organization called Radio Marti. Right now, they broadcast into Cuba. I think the modern-day version of those broadcast technology is internet connectivity. Since we have the capacity to do that, I think that's what we should be focused on right now.
So how do you think the current administration is reacting?
So far we've seen a lot of talk and very little action. So I think it's time that the Biden administration step up to the plate. This isn't a technological problem. It's simply a question of do we have the political will to stand up in support of the Cuban people? And I think we should do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, that's Brendan Carr. That's the FCC commissioner on the GOP side. And Kathy just interviewed him. Let's go back to the Capitol Hill and the podium.
For the United States, thank you for your presence and pray because another pastor, another friend, Jose Daniel Ferrer is my friend, the father. He's for 10 days.
Yeah, while listening, I'm trying to get his identity, and I'll let you know as soon as I find it out.
I don't know. Another friend,
And if
one
my,
pastor,
back on stage, you find out the identity, let me know.
I told the wife yesterday, the wife of pastor, I don't know. It's a pastor. Then pray, please, pray. Thanks God for this day and thanks for these people. Thanks for the love to the freedom. The Cubans need freedom, but this battle is for the United States too. Please God, it's the time. Thanks for your presence and help us in the name of Jesus. Amen and amen. Thank you.
Okay. This is Matt
Thank you, Pastor.
Scala.
And for so many reasons, it's my great honor to introduce our next speaker. And I love saying what her title is. Our House Republican Conference Chair, Elise Stefanik.
Yeah, that's one of the surprise. It was beyond the list that I got. So apparently,
thank you to
event
CPAC.
is
Thank
gaining
you to
some
all
traction.
of you for being here today.
I believe this is
House
a New York.
Republicans proudly stand with the Cuban people in their fight for freedom. Right now, today, in the streets of Cuba, the Cuban people are shouting liberty, waving the American flag, praying
Okay,
for
so
even
Kathy
an
is
ounce
having
of the
someone,
freedom
and
that
let's
we
give the
have
mic
in
to
this
Kathy.
country here. They're doing this
To our audience.
Yes, Mario Diaz-Balart, District 25, Florida, Republican.
Yeah, so we know you are Cuban descent, and your father actually is quite famous. So what's happening right now in Cuba? What does that mean to you?
Well, what we're seeing is the people turning out in the streets, asking for just one thing: freedom, and the end of the nightmare of 62 years of repression, of no human rights, of communist barbarism. And because of them turning out in the streets and peacefully asking for that, they're being murdered in their houses, they're being shot in their homes, they're being arrested, they're being beat up. One individual who just got sentenced to 1 year, his crime was that he filmed a music video. It's really Orwellian. And so that's why, while the Cubans are demanding for their freedom, it's important that the United States stand with the Cuban people in this hour when they are demanding freedom. Unfortunately, what we're getting from President Biden is a lot of empty rhetoric and no concrete action to actually help in the cause for freedom.
And so what do you think would be the consequence if the Cuban people's fight would be similar to what happened on the Tiananmen Square in 1989?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why no human being wants to be enslaved, wants to live under repression. And throughout history, there have been moments that have been key moments. And, we saw the demonstrations in Hong Kong, by the way, and demanding freedom. And so whether it's those who are suffering under the communist repression in China, in North Korea, in Venezuela, Nicaragua, or in Cuba, it's important that the United States stand with them, not with the regimes that represses them, not accepting that as a universal truth that will never change. No, we need to stand with the Cubans. We need to stand with those around the world who are standing up demanding freedom. And it's really interesting. If you look at Hong Kong, if you look at the demonstrations before in Iran, if you look at the people of Cuba, they carry the American flag. Why? So while here in our country, people denigrate our flag, around the world, those who understand repression, really understand repression, also understand that the United States is a symbol of freedom, that the American flag is the symbol of freedom and of hope. And it's important that the United States stand with those who are struggling and fighting to regain their liberty.
Yeah, and for some young people in America and also the hard lefts, they just make people to believe socialism can be better. So what do you think what's happening right now mean to them?
Oh, well, look, it's a clear demonstration of the horrors of communism and of socialism. It's never worked. It has two results: the expansion and the spread of misery and poverty, but also in the loss of freedom. And so, don't take my word for it. As you know, talk to the folks who have suffered under repression, under socialism, under Marxism, under communism, and they will tell you the same story. The answer is freedom. And those are systems that are repressive, that stymie freedom and prosperity. And so again, I'm so grateful to so many Americans who understand that the United States is a symbol of freedom, and that it's important that we stand with those who don't enjoy the same freedoms that we take for granted and sometimes even criticize in the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go.
Okay, that's Kathy from the site, and then now let's go back to the
of the
rally
communist
itself.
regime that has held them oppressed and demanding freedom today, using their voices, which we often take for granted here in America. And as they do that, they're flying the American flag, the same flag that's flying out here with many of you today and on the Capitol right behind us. And they understand that that flag, the American flag, the flag of the United States of America, stands for freedom, not just here, but across the entire world. They don't fly the Russian flag. They don't fly the Chinese flag. They fly the flag of the United States of America. They're asking for our help. They want us to stand with them as they call for freedom. They need our country to stand with them and help them in their quest for liberty. Anyone who flies the American flag is a friend of mine, and I'm proud to be here standing with the people of Cuba today. Cuba Libre!
The speaker is the co-founder of the Tea Party Patriots, Jenny Beth Martin.
Congressman from South Florida, Congressman Carlos Jimenez.
Thank you very much. And I have a little bit different story because when I was a young boy of about 6 years old, I actually lived in Cuba. I was born in Cuba. And as a 6-year-old boy, I remember being indoctrinated. Yes, at 6 years old, they start to indoctrinate you. And my father found out that they were trying to indoctrinate me and brought me and my sister and our family to this great country. And I was lucky. I was lucky to be brought here by my parents. 11 million people in Cuba are not so lucky. They're still there. They're being indoctrinated. They're political persecution. They have no food. They have no vaccines. They have no health care. They have political prisoners, thousands of them, and now they're rounding up even more. But that's not what the Cuban people are saying. They're not saying give us food, though. They're not saying give us vaccines. What they're saying is we want freedom. Freedom. That's all they want. And you know what? What can President Biden do? Yes, we can do everything in our power to restore the internet so the Cuban people can start to communicate among themselves, but also show images around the world of exactly what's going on in Cuba, how they're being repressed, how they're being beaten, how kids are being taken out of their homes and thrown in jail, or actually put into service in defense of the indefensible, which is the regime. All we ask, maybe the president can do this. Why doesn't he go on national TV and say, President Diaz-Canel, will you just leave? If you just leave, then all of those problems are resolved. The Cuban people will have food. The Cuban people will have vaccines. They'll have health care. All the political prisoners will be freed. There'll be freedom of the press, freedom of expression, the liberties that we enjoy here in America. That's all you have to do. Just leave. But they won't. They won't because they want power and they want to continue oppress the Cuban people. And so, for me as an immigrant from Cuba, who saw firsthand what they do.
So Kathy has the Tea Party Patriot co-founder, Jenny Martin.
Take action.
And let's give the mic to Kathy.
Because the Cuban people want freedom, and the Cuban people want freedom now. We will not go away. Time is not going to diminish our wants, our desire to see a free Cuba. That's what I want to see. I know that that's all my...
One of the speaker of the press conference today. So, Janet, why it's important for you to come to speak today?
I wanted to be here today because the men and women of Cuba are standing in the streets calling for freedom, exercising their God-given right to free speech, which we here in America often take for granted. And they're flying our flag, and they know that our flag stands for freedom. And I want them to know that the American people are with them and do what we can to help get our government to be with them as well. I think this shouldn't be a left-right Republican-Democrat issue. This seems to be an issue that can unite all Americans, and we stand to help others be free.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, a lot of people, even not only in Cuba, in Hong Kong, people waving the American flags, and but now some of our young people just don't see that way. So what do you think? Why is that? What's
the young people here in America? I think that, honestly, I think a lot of it is that they don't appreciate what we have here. They rather take it for granted, and they don't understand how, because we've had freedom here for so long without it being threatened, that they just don't quite understand. And I think that is part of the reason why they take it for granted. I also think they mistake free things that the government can give you free things with freedom, and it's not the same. Freedom and liberty are rights that we have from our Creator, and I think they just don't understand it, and we need to do a better job educating them about that.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that's Jenny Beth Martin, Tea Party Patriot co-founder. And now let's back to the rally. Okay, apparently Kathy has another guest.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Live streaming on Safe Chat, which is a free speech platform.
Good. And we need free speech, right? We support free speech all the way. No censorship, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay now?
Yeah, I think Kathy has the mic and she's checking it out
we
in
are
the back
switching
room.
from the live over there, so just...
Kathy, you're live. Yeah. So, yeah, basically, this is the west front of the Capitol.
And sickle spray painted on our
And
government buildings. And there
a
is
long
this
list of
Marxist
speakers.
movement. So what's happening
And actually,
in
this is the
Cuba
first
directly
rally
related
after January
people who are
6th.
freedom-loving Americans here in the United States. And as Carlos said, it's gone to Venezuela, Nicaragua, Bolivia. Venezuela, the richest country in South America, destroyed and propped by the Castro regime. And who is siding with the communist dictators? Our adversaries.
Okay. Now Kathy has the Florida
North Korea,
congressman.
Iran, China,
Let me pass the
Russia.
mic to Kathy.
That's who's propping up.
So here we have another great speaker from the press conference today, Florida Congressman. So, Congressman, tell us your name, in which district you represent.
My name is Carlos Jimenez. I represent Florida's 26th Congressional District, Southwest and West Miami-Dade, and all of the Monroe County, which is the Florida Keys. And so, but I used to be the mayor of Miami-Dade County before that, so I've been in this for a while. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you actually lived in Cuba for a few years. Tell us about that.
Well, I lived under the regime for about 2 years. I was born in 54. We left in 1960. And so what I conveyed to the people here was that during that time, I was just 6 years old, and I was in school, and I was already being indoctrinated on communism. Of course, by the teachers. We would have to wear armbands. We would have to say how great the revolution was and all that. My father found out about it. My mother found out about it, and decided that they needed to live in the land of the free, not somewhere they're trying to indoctrinate people, kids who are 6 years old.
And so, according to what you know, why people in Cuba right now, they rise up?
They rise up because they want freedom. Simple as that. They're not asking for food. They're not asking for vaccines. They're not asking for medical care. They're asking for food. And what I'm asking for is if the regime leaves, if Diaz-Canel leaves, they'll have food, they'll have vaccines, they'll have medical care, and they'll have freedom. They don't have freedom right now because what happens in Cuba, you have people all around that are part of the community for the defense of the revolution. You can't even speak your mind. You have thousands of political prisoners in Cuban prisons right now. They're taking kids out of their homes and dragging them out right now so they can serve on the front line of the defense of this revolution, which is indefensible. So what does the Cuban people want? What we wanted for 60 years, freedom.
So why, for you, how do you think? Because it was reported the Chinese Communist government is behind Cuban government, like for the internet.
Sure.
So how do you think? What does that mean?
Well, it means that look, they're communist regimes. They're repressive communist regimes, and so they're going to stick together. What we need is for the U.S. government, if there's technology available, to circumvent the shutdown of the internet, to instill it so that the people of Cuba can communicate with themselves and communicate with the outside world. So to show the outside world what's really going on. We got glimpses of it, a little bit, and then the Cuban government shut down the internet. They have to, because they can't sustain this. And so they have to shut down information. What's that?
That's what's in China.
They all have the same playbook. They all follow the same book. When the people rise up, what do? You repress them. You instill fear in them. And that's what happens, all right? And so the people, oh my God, look what's going to happen, right? But you know what? We have another playbook. It's happened in East Germany and Poland, where the people rose up in such numbers that the government couldn't do anything about it. And then there was change, all right? And that's what we need in Cuba. But we also need our government, this great, United States, to help the Cuban people in their quest for freedom. Freedom is a universal. The desire for freedom is universal. It doesn't know any language. We all know it. We all have our word for freedom. We all want it. The people of Cuba want it. We want it here, and I'm sure the people of China do too. Thank you. Yes.
I had a question for you about what
Hi.
okay. I'm going to be very brief because I have a meeting. So. Yeah, I'm Nicole Maliatakis from New York, Staten Island, and Brooklyn.
You have your Cuban descent.
That was beautiful. Thank you for being here. A great friend of freedom everywhere, a great conservative congressman from the state of Texas, Representative Roger Williams. Coming up, Roger.
That's Roger Williams from Texas. Now we have a...
First of all, as you heard, I represent Texas in the U.S. Congress.
Oh, we have a little mixture of the interview and the sound.
See the Cuban people marching in the streets, risking their lives, because there you cannot speak out against the government. You are jailed, beaten, even shot if you speak out against the government. And so they are risking their lives to walk with the American flag in the streets because they want America's support at this moment. And it's critical that at this moment we do that. This is President Biden's opportunity to liberate Cuba, just like we saw the falling of the Berlin Wall during Ronald Reagan in 1987. And so this is an opportunity for America to be the leader of the free world. And I know that Chinese American community, like my community, just as so many others that I represent who fled Russia or Poland or Korea, they came to this country to escape many of these radical socialist policies. And they came here for freedom and opportunity. And that is what the Cuban people want. They want freedom, they want democracy, they want human rights. They want what we have here in the United States of America, and we should work to support them.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
All right, that's the Congresswoman from New York. And Nicole, you saw that yourself. Now let's back to the rally. So who's the gentleman here?
So we are not going to rest until the Cuban people are liberated from their government. And I appreciate my colleagues here today who are joining on this fight and demonstrating our support for the Cuban people. So may God bless America. May God bless Cuba. Thank you.
Congressman Williams isn't even sweating. I don't know how that's possible.
Roger Williams of Texas.
Baseball training. Have you guys ever heard of this great crusader for freedom, Gordon Chang, a wonderful board member of CPAC, and his hard-charging, freedom-loving wife, Lydia? Will Gordon and Lydia please come up to the stage?
So Gordon Chang is the next speaker.
Today we stand on the grounds of the Capitol, the heart of the greatest nation in the world. We stand with people who are fighting for their dignity, for their freedom, and for their lives. The oppressors of Cuba are especially arrogant because they know that China stands behind them. China's giving them money, giving them technology, giving them propaganda. Right now, there's a big struggle in the world, dictatorships versus democracy. And democracies are under fierce attack. But sometimes as bleak as it appears, there's hope. There's hope because the people of Cuba are taking to the streets. The people of Cuba are sending a message, not just to the people in Havana, but also to the people of China. And that's why Beijing knows that everything is at stake. Unfortunately, there's an occupant of the White House who is not standing with the Cuban people. So it is up to us, you and me, to say to Havana, no more. It is up to us to say to Beijing, no more. Let me hear you say it. No more! No more! No more! More. The people in Cuba, they know what America stands for. When they take to the streets, they fly our flag. Our flag stands for freedom. Fly it, honor it, defend it. Cuba will be free.
Do we need internet service back in Cuba? Do people need to be able to communicate with each other? We have a great member of the Federal Communications Commission here, a Trump appointee, Brendan Carr. Would you come up and talk to us about how we solve the technology problem?
Okay, now Kathy has another guest for us. Let's pass the mic to Kathy.
This is a
Well, we can see that the speaker is the... Okay.
Why are you here today?
Well, I'm here because I'm a believer of freedom and liberty. And
Roger
Cuba
Williams,
is a prime example of
Texas.
people who want freedom and liberty, much like we
House
have,
Representative.
much like what's under attack here in the United States by the Biden administration. So we need to support them. It's amazing how we support illegals coming across the border in Texas, but we can't let the Cubans get across here in the United States. So it's about freedom and liberty. It's about America standing with a friend of ours, and I'm here to support the Cubans and what they stand for.
So what specifically do you think is the best way
for the United States to support the Cuban people?
Well, I think we welcome them. I think that we let them know that we're fighting for them, but allow them to begin to, if they need to get to America, do it. No pathway to citizenship, nothing like that. But these are our friends, and they're in a time of need right now. What they're doing is trying to do away with the oppression they've had for over 70 years. We need to stand with them. This administration, the Biden administration, is not standing with them. They're standing more with Russia than they are standing with Cuba. We've got to fix that.
And for the embargoes, some of the people believe that the people who in Cuba are poor because of the embargo from the United States. So, and the Biden administration is probably under such pressure. So, how do you think?
Well, I think that Biden needs to do something. He hadn't even said where he stands. I mean, we talk about a lot of things, but where does this Biden administration stand? What's their plan to help Cuba? What's their plan to continue freedom and liberty? And we haven't heard it. And he's silent right now. That's not a good thing.
Do you think this is a partisan issue, or
it's totally partisan? And I don't get it. It shouldn't be, should it? Shouldn't be. But he's siding more with the Chinese than he is with the Cubans right now. So we want to get it fixed. That's why elections are important. That's why this next election, we get the House and the Senate back. We can change a lot of the stuff. The Cuban people have somebody to help them.
So talking about the Chinese Communist government's role in Cuba as well as other communist countries. So what do you think that means to our policy towards China?
Well, look, China's not our friend. We need to understand that, okay? President Trump understood that. China is their whole goal is to take over everything without a bullet fired with America. We need to understand they're not our friend. We need to cut taxes. We need to empower people to do business in America, build factories, and be the superpower we are, because the world will implode without a super America. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I will find out.
That's Roger Williams, 25th District of Florida. Texas.
Thanks, Matt. Who here loves freedom? Let me hear you if you love freedom. In the heart of every American, and the heart of every Cuban, in the heart of every human being is a desire, a yearning for freedom.
Yeah, I think I know who the speaker is, although we missed the introduction.
In Cuba, risking their very lives to fight for freedom. Just as so many
and this gentleman, his name is Alex Mooney. He's the House representative from West Virginia.
They have never been closer as long as we stand with them. And what would a free Cuba look like? When people of faith are no longer afraid of harassment from a communist regime, that is liberty. When artists can freely express their political opinions without harassment and jail time, that is liberty. When parents don't have to wait hours in line for rice and beans to feed their starving children, that is liberty. When the dying communist regime breathes its last breath, that is liberty for the Cuban people. My fellow citizens, to Americans out there, it is our duty. We have a duty to help our neighbors. Our honor is at stake. It is our country that must come to their aid. Duty, honor, country, 3 words that frame our freedom, gives hope to the people of Cuba. God bless this great country, and God bless the Cuban people.
This is Alex Mooney from the West Virginia.
I'm Maria Salazar. I represent the city of Miami. The heart of the Cuban exile community. I thank all of you. If you come from my district, I thank my fellow congressmen and congresswomen who have been here with all of you. And this is a fight that we will win. And I'm going to repeat the same thing that I have said over and over again, which has been echoed by my friends here, my colleagues in Congress. We need 2 things. We need leadership from the Biden administration, and we need connectivity. Cuba needs internet. And why? This doesn't cost anything. Leadership and connectivity doesn't cost anything. Leadership is for the Biden administration to prove to the rest of the world that they can lead this charge and they can rally the international community around something that is decent, that is noble, that is correct, to help the Cuban people obtain their freedom. And number 2, connectivity, internet. And why this is so important? because everything in July 11th has started because someone in a remote town in Cuba was doing a Facebook Live, and then the rest of the island saw it, and then it spread like
And this is
wildfire.
Maria
The Cuban
Slaza.
people need to communicate among themselves, A, and B, rally others to go into the streets.
27th Congressional
them.
District.
Have their future in their own hands. Let them decide if they want to go out on the street and be butchered and to be beaten and to be tortured. That's their decision. But we need to help them. And the Biden administration, as a commissioner from the FCC just said, only needs to say yes, give the green light to connectivity. We, the United States, we have the technology. All we need is the political willingness from the White House. That's it. That doesn't cost money. That doesn't cost anything. That only costs. So I am once again sending a message to President Biden. In the name of God, the God that you believe in, we ask you to just say yes to that technology coming from the DOD, coming from the private sector. It doesn't matter. We just need the Cubans to know that they are not alone, that they can go out into the streets and the rest of the world will see how they're being butchered. But it doesn't matter. It's their decision. We only need to support them, and they will write their own history. So it's in Biden's hand. And we thank you if you do it, because history will reward you. We do not want this to be another Bay of Pigs. This Democratic administration has the possibility of redressing that horrible moment in history by now giving the Cubans what they want, which is what they wanted, freedom. Thank you.
Okay, that's
My name is Alex.
Maria Slaza, 27th Congressional District.
My name is Alex Mooney. I represent West Virginia's 2nd District. My mother, Lala Suarez, came from Cuba when she was 20 years old. Mom's sitting over there right now, joining us in this rally. She did spend 7 weeks in prison, in a communist prison in 1961. So, as you know, I'm not going to repeat what my colleagues have said. Obviously, freedom is important. What many people don't realize in this country and around the world is we have freedoms that they don't enjoy in these communist countries. The freedom right here to have a rally, the freedom to protest, freedom of speech, even the freedom to vote with more than one candidate who didn't get 100% of the vote. They don't enjoy those freedoms in Cuba. Right now, these brave people who have protested in Cuba have been generally arrested and put in jail for a year, and then when Cuba hopes the world's not looking, they'll add another 5 years to the prison sentence. So we are watching, and we need to do everything within our power here. I agree with a lot of Biden's words, but what we need to see from President Biden is some really concrete actions to help the people of Cuba become free. Mm-hmm. So with that, God bless you for coming, and let's keep this fight up.
Okay, Kathy is with the mayor from Florida, and
thanks,
switching to her.
My name is Pat Fallon. I represent the 4th.
We have a mayor from Florida, Ray Martinez. So, Mayor, please introduce yourself.
Oh, it's stuck, a little stuck. Okay, now the 4th District, Congressional District is speaking. Representative.
Represent Miami or have Cuban ancestry. So what is this Irish, Italian, conservative, who grew up in Massachusetts and now represent Texas, here right now? Because I speak freedom. Because freedom is a concept that is universal. Because it's a gift from God, the Almighty, life. It's a gift not to a government, not to a group or any other person. It's a gift that the Almighty gave to you and to you and to great Americans like Mercedes and Matt Slapp, who organize this, who are literally doing God's work here on earth. Free will. 11 million souls for 62 years have been denied free will and choice. If you look that way, about 7,920 feet, that's where Joe Biden lives right now. And there's words and there's no actions. The Cuban regime is evil, it's corrupt, and it's oppressive. And we know this, and it's time for change. Many of us were alive and remember when the Berlin Wall fell. We need to get rid of the last
vestiges of tyranny and bondage in this hemisphere while we still have air in our lungs. And the way to do that is together. As my mother used to say, Italian mother, insieme. Together, we can do this. So we all here stand with the Cuban people. We stand for freedom, we stand for justice, and we stand for their free lives so they can enjoy what we do. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Cuba Libre!
We're wrapping up very soon, and you all have been incredible to stay here with us. I know it's muy caliente aquí in Washington, but I have some dynamic leaders, young leaders, who have helped put this whole event together. Let me bring onto the stage Santiago Avila, Abraham Enriquez, Morgan Zegers, and John Pence.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you love freedom and liberty, let me hear you. It is great to be here. When we started Bienvenido 2 years ago, I could not imagine us joining forces with such a powerful organization like CPAC and conservative leaders to stand united for Patria y Libertad and demanding that we see a Cuba libre. Listen, everyone, at Bienvenido, we are the home of the young Hispanic voices and young Hispanics in general all over the country. For 60 years, Cuba has been under brutal dictatorship. Communism has killed Cuba's economy, and it has stripped the individual's personal liberties. So here, we are here to demand the Biden administration understands and sees what is going on. Women are crying out in the streets, not understanding when their child are going to be let out of prison simply for demanding and taking to the streets for freedom. It's unfortunate that Biden took 12 days to announce our unity for the people of Cuba. And today we're demanding and we're asking that America shows our unity towards our brothers and sisters in Cuba, because without Cuba, the American dream can not prosper correctly. We stand with our Cuban brothers and sisters, and we want to see a Cuba libre. I want to thank you for coming out today, and I appreciate all the support. Let's continue fighting.
All right, I'm a little short, but hi, you guys. My name's Morgan Zegers. I run a nonprofit called Young Americans Against Socialism. What we do is we interview survivors from socialist countries, because right now 70% of young Americans would vote for a socialist. Do you ever wonder why that is? Probably because when we are in history class in America, young people learn about Stalin and Lenin and Castro and Maduro, but we just learn that they're bad guys and that they got too much power and people suffered because of it. We do not learn that they came to power like Castro did, calling themselves democratic humanitarians and democratic socialists and promising justice and progress. So when we hear in America from AOC and the Squad the same false promises that every socialist says throughout history, what do you know? No red flags go off in young people's minds in America because they cannot connect the dots. I have two asks. Go to fightsocialism.org if you're a survivor and want to tell your story to help young people learn. Second, stop relying on the government schools to teach your kids about government being bad. Stop relying on government schools to teach your kids about history and economics. Do it yourself. If you see a broken family and kids that need learning, take them on as a role model. I really appreciate you guys giving me the time. Thank you so much. We will keep fighting those commies, and we'll stand with Cuba. Thank you.
Oh, this young girl is very clear-minded.
My name is Santiago Avila. I'm with the Republican National Hispanic Assembly. I'm here to tell you a very, very super quick story. You see, my grandfather was a political prisoner in Cuba for over 10 years.
Let's have the voice a little louder.
People in Cuba right now are not asking for COVID vaccines. They're not asking for a lot of things. They're asking for one simple thing: freedom. They're asking for freedom. You see, my grandfather traveled the seas through El Mariel when Fidel thought that it was okay to just release all these prisoners. And he traveled with 3 young kids, one of them being my mother, and his wife, through treacherous waters. You don't do that because America is a racist country. You don't do that because, oh my God, people in America are woke. America is that light, that shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan spoke about. And for the people that keep saying, well, We got to do this America First. America First is about being that shining city on a hill. I want to ask you really quick, how many of you here were born in America? Raise your hand for me, please. You see, how many of you here have descendants that were born in Cuba? Raise your hand, please. You see, there's a story behind that. There's a story behind that, and I want to ask you this question because I think this is the most important question you have to ask yourself. If the United States falls to the likes of AOC, Bernie Sanders, and all these people, because let me tell you something, freedom is not about a Republican or Democrat issue. Freedom is freedom, and that's it. Where do other people, not only from Cuba, but from Venezuela, from Ecuador, from Nicaragua, where do they go if there is no America? We are the last stand on this planet, and it takes people like you right here to help us fight. And I will end it with this. My grandfather, I lost him about 2.5 years ago to cancer. But I learned a very important lesson from him. You see, my grandfather was born an enslaved man who was given rights by his government. He taught me that the United States of America is so special because our rights are granted by our Creator. We're endowed with certain unalienable rights, amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Meaning that the government didn't give us these rights. Help us fight. Help us send a message to Joe Biden that we need the people of Cuba to have internet so they can continue to communicate, so there can pretty soon be a free Cuba. Patria y vida.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We need to remind President Biden that este Partido Republicano es el Partido de la Libertad. Why are we the party of freedom? Because we stand for the first of our freedoms, freedom of religion. We stand for freedom of speech, the right to peacefully assemble, freedom for the unborn, freedom of commerce, of free, fair, and reciprocal trade. But remember, we always stand for freedom at home and abroad. We stand with those who are fighting for patria y vida, not patria y muerte. We stand for those who are fighting for their freedoms, their God-given rights. Thank you all. Thank you to the Schlapp family for bringing this together. Let's remember, vamos por la libertad juntos en el porvenir. Thank you, everyone.
Libertad! 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 This fight has only begun. We got to keep talking about it. We got to keep putting pressure on Joe Biden and these Democrats. Let's pray for a free Cuba. Cuba Libre! God bless you all and God bless America. Thank you for joining us.
Ya tú hablas.
Okay. So what you're watching is on Washington, D.C. and in front of the Capitol, the west side of it. And that event just finished. And this is a gathering.
Please introduce yourself. My name is Mariela Jimenez, and I'm the president of a nonprofit called A Voice for Freedom. I'm an attorney and very much involved in the political arena of the international community with Venezuela, Cuba, and everything that's happening right now in the Americas.
As I understand it, you actually, are very familiar what happened in Venezuela, right?
I was actually one of the two attorneys that prompted the recall referendum against Chavez and prompted the marches that we see in Venezuela with the Mujeres of Pink, which helps. The ones that we got help from was actually the Damas de Blanco from Cuba. So we got these people to rally out in the streets, but that wasn't just enough. I mean, the Venezuelan people were very spontaneous to confront the government because in Venezuela, we don't just have a dictatorship, we have a tyranny that now is followed with Maduro, but most importantly is actually controlled by the Cubans, by the Castros. And that is why I tell Venezuela that, and the people here in the Americas, that the Venezuelans' problem is Cuba-suela. The day that Cuba comes down, Venezuela will come down. Venezuela is extremely rich, but we have to activate things that have to do with the convention with terrorism because we're back basically in the backyard of America today. And so I call the people that we are trying to activate a tribunal like Nuremberg. And I think we are going to be successful about doing this. We were successful activating the international community in Venezuela, and now we're going to do it with Cuba.
What's the most lesson do you think Americans should learn from Venezuela and Cuba?
Absolutely. Freedom is not for free. You do not leave any of these communists have a little bit of oxygen. You need to trample down on what they're doing immediately. And this is the first thing. People have to be active. And the other thing is that international community has to stop being so complacent. The international community has something that is in the law, and is that they have the obligation to protect. And that is something that I tell people out there, be vigilant, continue fighting, keep up the good fight, no violence. And like I said, James Sharp, you can still bring a democracy and stand up for democracy without no violence. And that's what we're doing here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Okay.
Can you, do you have a
So
card?
we're in front of the in front of the Capitol, U.S. Capitol. This is the ending part of the event. However, our reporter Kathy is there, and she's still got to line up a few good guests who can give us some detailed point of view. And this is actually quite assembly of the. I lose count. Okay, I think it's nearly or maybe more than 10 congressional representatives, and 2 senators, as I counted, and quite a big event. Okay, at the end of the show, I will have to ask Kathy how many medias are there, and who are they? I'm just curious. All right. So as a background, but as you can tell, we're sitting here. I'm in San Francisco, studio, and in the AC environment. As you can see, it's really, really hot there, right? As you can see. So now Kathy have our next guest, which is a young lady, and okay, Kathy, you have the mic.
All right, so we have Morgan here. Morgan, introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I love what you guys do, and I'm so excited to be introduced to your audience. My name is Morgan Zeggers, and I run Young Americans Against Socialism. And so what we do, because right now 70% of young Americans want to vote for a socialist, and that's pretty crazy. I believe that if they had a better understanding of history, economics, and policy, they would not be in favor of socialism. And so we make videos interviewing survivors from socialist and communist countries, and we put them on social media. We also do videos on history, economics, finance, everything that's really missing from the American classroom, and we have a blast doing it.
Wow. So from what's happening right now in Cuba, what do you think is the lesson for the people you were talking about?
Of course. Well, considering that statistic right now, right, a majority of young Americans, my generation, want socialism. And I believe that that's because in American history classrooms, we learn about Mao Zedong, we learn about Castro and Stalin and Lenin and all these really bad guys, but they're more so just taught as evil dictators that got too much power. You are not taught how they came to power and the things that they promised. And so, for example, we're here at Cuba Libre, the rally, because right now in Cuba, back in the 50s and 60s, communists came to power by calling themselves democratic humanitarians. That's quite a word twist. And so we didn't learn that in the American classroom. We just learned that Castro was a bad guy. So when we hear these same kind of promises from American socialists and American communists, that they're going to bring progress, they're going to bring humanitarian causes and social justice to the fore scene, nothing really works in our minds in terms of a red flag going off in our young American minds, because we just don't understand that that's how these radical dictators come to power. And we have to have more caution when we're hearing these false promises from them. So that's what we're trying to connect, especially with Cuba, especially with what's going on in China right now.
Yeah. So for our audience, with different age range, what do you think, for them, what do you want to say?
Yeah, it seems to have a connection problem. And,
well, I would say a lot of people...
Okay, that's her name is Morgan, and she's the representative for the Young American Against Socialism. And I was listening to what she said. She said 70% of American young people want to embrace socialism, and the YouGov has a survey, and which is 2 years ago, and that survey result really shocked me. It was 40% of the young people from 16 to 23. You're talking about young people and youngster people, and they favor socialism. And then 1 year later, on the 2020, the same survey found 49%. So this year they haven't done that yet. So if you just increase just by the same pace, you're looking at 59 or 60%. And then Morgan said that it's 70%. We got a bigger situation, guys, here. Now we are actually doing this reporting about the rally to support the rights of Cuban. Indeed, I got viewers, Tijuana, Akabiaga, and you said, we need to care about our own nation, take care of our own people, our own country here, right? So yes, indeed, you're right. A lot of people are asking us, why do we care? Why do we care about this event over there? We have our own problem. Our own problem, in my opinion, is the same problem that is of Cuba and Venezuela. Communists, they have their own formula, okay? How they disguise themselves, how they took the power, and after that, how they change. It's just all the same gene, same type of life repeating themselves. So for us, it's really about education. Actually, I did a show about 2 days ago, and I summarized the 9 steps of how communists, assert power. They come from nowhere, right? To a country like America, which is very solid. We got strong church, a strong family, and a strong school. We got administration, jurisdiction, and legislation. It was a very well-structured and a very solidly built republic. Okay, so how to shake that? It took them 3 decades, and then take all kinds of form. But the key thing is a deception. It's a deception. So we have to recognize the true nature, the true thing that is hiding behind that that good name, democratic, humanitarian, progressive, liberals, and so on and so forth. We need to recognize what is behind it. An event like this, what is happening in Cuba is really just open up the book and show you the answer. So we have to not only care about event like this, we have to lead our kids to watch event like this, listen to what they have to say. They try it, that's the result. Our kids, don't know about that. Our kids always think, it sounds great, everybody's equal. And, the deception of the communism or the socialism is very easy to be bought in. That's unfortunately the reality. So it's not an easy thing. We just say a couple of words and then the problem dissolved. No. It's rather complicated. So we have to carry this on our back, folks. I'm speaking not here as journalism, rather as a citizen, as a Chinese American who love this country. So Reagan, in his farewell speech, right, in the end of the 1987, I think, and he said, the great things happen in this country. All great things that happen in this country happen at a dinner table. So we're talking about the parents teaching their kids what is right and what is wrong. All right. So that's on our back. If we don't do that, we leave them to public schools. They have taken over. The socialists, the communism already taken over these public schools. They sacked that. So basically, we lost those schools. It would take a decade or two to take them back. But in the meantime, a whole generation of Americans grew up as socialism. That's going to be a very, very costly problem to fix. But now starting with ourselves, right? As a parent, spend time with your kids. And in the program the night before, I talked about former Supreme Court Judge Scalia. Yeah, and he said, he told his clerks, always go home, have dinner. You cannot miss your dinner chat with your kids. All right, don't overwork. You got to do your other job, which is grow your children well as a good American. So yeah, what do you think? Type up something here. I'm just in the safe chat. I'm watching your comment. And Tijuana, you said, yes, but we still have patriots locked up just for protesting. Actually, at this very hour, all right? We are talking about, 1 o'clock in the East Coast. Now it's 1:20. And 4 Congress people are in front of the DOJ. And then to protest and about the DOJ, the Attorney General is not responding to their letter about what's happening to the people that was locked up, and over 100 people were locked up, and it has been for a very long time. Actually, we interviewed, Tijuana. We did not ignore that issue. Kathy have a in-depth interview of one of them, and I don't have his name with me, but he was a New Mexico a county supervisor who was locked up in his first 10 days. He cannot even get to his attorney. He was denied that right. He cannot take any bath in the entire 10 days. And so that's the, we brought that story to you. And at the earlier part of this thread, you can see that interview. So yes, indeed, we got a problem here. We got a problem in Cuba too. We need to pay attention to them all. And we need to not build the connection, not at all. We need to discover the connection and so that people can learn from it, right? As I said, all communists, they got the power through deception. How do you deal with deception? You recognize them. Once we recognize them, the deception won't work. Deception have to, they have to get people's buy-in. If people do not buy in, they know the truth, then the deception will fall through. And the communism will not have their way, and they cannot sack this country. So, yeah, that's a general thought. And I don't know, what do you think? You've been watching for, I'm sorry, some of you have been watching for an hour or so. And what do you think? Just share your thought here. And I want to, I can read that to you. And so today is a quite event with more than 10 senators and Congress people come to the state capitol, and then you got I don't know. You do the search. How many media can you find about the footage and what's happening here? I think it's not very easy to find anything. And okay, let me see. Penn Johnson, you said the deceptive ways they sell their change must be understood, especially by our young people. This is such a good point. We need to show more of this to our nation, especially our children. Yes, exactly. Our children, they are very naive. Okay, they believe everything the teacher and the parent told them. And those teachers from the teachers union, okay, they are taking that opportunity and indoctrinate our children. But they still listen to their parents. They still come back for dinner. Okay, prepare for your dinner. Prepare for your dinner and prepare for the talk at your dinner table. Don't waste that opportunity. It's a very, very precious opportunity. Okay, our kids grew up as a useful fool by the communists. They're going to rule this country. They're going to rule the world that their children will be living in. So now we have to really, really think hard about this, and what about our duty? What is the content of our talk at the dinner table? Yeah, so now it's still easy. We do this at a dinner table. In the future, now Cuban, they have to do this on the street. And then in China, they face the tanks. So it's still easy for us. But if we let go the guard, if we let go the vigilance, we'll fall, yeah. And Pam Johnson also wrote, liberty is intertwined throughout this world. Freedom, your items, the world. Okay? And, and Young, you said they want people to flood our country for votes, and they will need a lot of them. Cubans are not going to flood our country. They will be flooded before they get here. They'll be flooded before they get here. Yes, I know what you mean. As a matter of fact, may I? I'm sorry. May I share with you one point that I have? It's not very widely seen. As you know, you see those people, right, rushing through the borders, southern borders, and flood our bordering states and creating a lot of problems. But there's some civil lighting there. Believe it or not. Those people who came to the U.S., fleeing their country, came to the U.S., they are not automatically Democratic Party voters. Can you believe it? They are not automatically at least, Democratic voters. They actually, they very likely, they could become the voters that vote against them. Why? Can you think about why? Because they come to this country for the reason that they don't like what is back there. So the least that they would want is that America become the country that they left behind. You can see that? So you can see like people like Wei and Kathy, people like Robbie Starbuck that we interviewed yesterday, right? And his father's from Cuba. You see those people, those American from Russia, Russian American, Vietnam American, Chinese American, Cuba American. They are in the forefront, and they're speaking out against the fall, slipping into the socialism of this country. They're the most determined. Okay, now let me stop my ranting. Okay, Kathy's there. Let's give the mic to Kathy. Hi, Kathy. You have it.
Okay.
Oh, what a surprise. I got Xi Van Fleet, who's the speaker.
I see, you already see Xi, who's beside me, right? Xi Van Fleet.
Yes.
Actually, she came from Virginia to attend this event, so I think it's a good ending for our show today, live show today. So, Xi, how do you feel about this rally?
It is great. I just can't miss it because we are the people here supporting the Cubans for freedom. And I've been to Cuba in 2017, and I know what they are struggling, and I know they want freedom. And so I'm here to support, and I'm so glad to see everybody here, and especially see those young people. And they need to show people that the young people also know that communism is dangerous, and we need to reach out to more young people to tell them that communism is here. We're not only fighting for the Cubans, we're fighting our own country.
Wonderful. Thank you, Xi, for sharing what you think.
Can I have a talk?
I think that ends our live show here
wait,
today.
Wait, Kathy. Can I have a talk with Xi?
I've interviewed different speakers, from congressmen, senators, and to mayors, to community members like Xi. So.
I didn't know that's live. It is live.
Okay. No problem.
It is live.
So that's what this free speech platform is about, right? So really, we wanted to show you the original words from people, the reactions from people towards what's happening in Cuba right now, why people think it is important for them to show up, for them to speak up. So without further ado, I think everybody can just go back to the speeches, the interviews, to really ask some of the speakers what's their suggestion to our audience, to the people who are watching this show, what to do. So you can really decide by yourself. All right, back to you, Wei.
Okay, I cannot have a word with Kathy. Can I have a word with Kathy as another a formal ending? Okay, I guess that's it. Okay, thank you very much. I'll be talking to you again at the next show and summarize her experience. I want to interview Kathy. Okay. Until next time. Okay, I guess that'll be it. All right, thank you for coming to our show, and 90 minutes, and appreciate you staying with us, and I feel very honored to bring this to you. And I don't know how many medias are there. I saw some. I don't see a lot, but I will learn more from Kathy as she come back. Okay, stay with us, pass our information, and then pass this channel to your friends. Just tweet it out or just share that so that more people can know our channel. We have to build news mainstream media that cover all the events that shall be covered, and they are not. Also, we have our Twitter, our Twitter account. I will just post it there at the channel. Pay attention, please still follow us. And Twitter is not the best platform, but it's a platform that we can reach out to people. All right, and thank you very much. And remember to pay attention to our notice and install the Safe Chat app if you have not done so. And okay, take care.